Hello, this is the Harboring Light. I give a conservative perspective. I'm Mary. Feedback is greatly important. Feel free to reach out to me. I appreciate all you listeners out there. And also, I apologize about that. I had some technical difficulties on Wednesday, and I posted Wednesday episode on Thursday. But I want y'all to know, assuring that this podcast means everything. You all mean everything. So I didn't stop anything. It was just a technical problem. All right, so audio platforms, and also the links to get in contact with me and my Shopify link will be provided for you. And audio platforms, moving on to that, on Spreaker, Spotify, Pandora, iHeartRadio. These are just to name a few. So this episode is Friday's episode, and I'm focusing in on the fashion of Singapore. Here we go. Okay, before I get into everything, also I want to give my tremendous support and love and understanding for those listeners in Spain with the power outages. My heart goes out to you and yours and your family, and hang in there and keep strong. And if you feel free to reach out to me if you like to. I'll have that provided for you, as I always do for all of you listeners, to give me feedback, comment, and my email will be right there for you. All right, so my thoughts about the fashion of Singapore. So I think Singapore is a really good example of the aspects of in the perspective of American European influences, and how all those things blend together quite well, and to a way to where it's really innovative, and it drives the force of the economy, the force of the way the whole infrastructure of a culture moves for the better. And Singapore really embodies that, the way that their infrastructures look, for the aspects of the architecture and the arts, the modern art, the contemporary feel of most of the buildings that are in Singapore, to the restaurants, and on to the fashion, which the topic that I'm talking about today. All right, let's dive in. Okay, so of course all these sources, say that 3 times fast, will be provided for you in this episode. Okay, here we go. All right, Singapore fashion history. So Singapore's fashion history reflects the country's cultural diversity and modernization over the decades. All right, for instance, traditional attire such as the baju and the kebaya were common until the 50s, with Western-style clothing becoming more prevalent among those who had studied or traveled over the seas or could afford imported fashions. So the advent of television in 1963 inspired local women to follow the latest trends in the media, which were often influenced by Western movies and celebrities. Yeah, and I think, even though they're talking about Western movies, yes, and the 60s with that mod look, it really inspired the aspects of fresh, new wave trends, youthful aspects of fashion, and a lot of things and were inspired from that, for anywhere from boho chic that we have, that it's still prevalent today, to maxis. Well, that goes with the boho chic, to mini skirts, to the boots, the boots and leather boots, to heels. So the list goes on, and I think, and then going to more of a traditional look where we get the Madison Avenue, Saks Fifth sort of mystique and feel. You have that about too in the aspects of fashions from the 60s. But I think now this isn't considered a movie or anything like that. But besides the starlets of the time, the Audrey Hepburns, the Goldie Hawns, and so many others, Bridget Bardot, Well, I think Marlo Thomas really set the trend too, with the aspects of the way that the modern woman was, specifically in the 60s, with that look where she blended a lot of stuff together to where she's got that Fifth Avenue look, to where she's got that mod look and everything. It really exuded in her character and that girl in that television series. And then so many other characters too. When we get in with Diane Carroll with her role, and it's phasing me with the name of that show, but it was very prevalent at the time where she was a nurse practitioner. No, a nurse. I don't think she was. Well, she was a nurse. I don't think she was an RN. I'm not sure. I saw this, back on TV Land when I was in the 5th grade or so. So, it's been a while. So anyhow, with her look too, with even fashionable too, with the aspects of being a nurse, and blending that together with that classic look that she had outside of work and everything. It was really nice. And the 60s was a really good time with the aspects of playing with the idea of different fashion trends here, or fashion in general. It was really unique. All right, so here we go. Moving on. Fashion magazines began to appear in Singapore to cater to growing appetites for fashion news and trends. So, Fashion was the title of the first Malay weekly fashion magazine published in Malaya, featuring Kaaba designs, with a more defined silhouette and elements borrowed from Western-style dresses. So in the 70s, local fashion scenes became vibrant, with fashion shows held in upscale venues like the Grand Hyatt and Raffles Hotel. European fashion houses such as Louis Vuitton, Gucci, Christian Dior opened their first boutiques in Singapore in 1979. Laying the groundwork for the city-state's fashion industry to enter its golden era in the next decade. So by the 90s, fashion in Singapore had become quite different, and in engineering and blending all the international trends. So mini skirts for women and Bermuda shorts for men became very popular, reflecting that humid climate, which goes without saying, you dress for your climate. So cargo pants and bell-bottom jeans were also common, along with tight-fitting tees featuring big logos of brands and famous icons. So today, Singapore is recognized as the leading Asian fashion capital of the world, with a thriving local fashion industry that includes brands like ANS.EIN, which focuses on incorporating art into everyday wear, and Duxton, known for its tropical print size intensive designs. So the city-state continues to embrace diverse styles and unique designs, reflecting its cosmopolitan nature and cultural heritage. the fashion revolution of Singapore, and the movement of advocating for greater transparency, sustainability, and ethics in fashion is also prevalent today, with collaborations with various stakeholders to promote positive change in the fashion sector. All right, so I'm going to get into some more aspects about Singapore fashion through the decades. So, of course, this will be provided too in this episode. So it's entitled The Way We Were, Fashion Through the Decades. So, traditional costumes. So, until the 50s, traditional attire was a common sight on the streets of Singapore, wearing Western-style clothing that was preserved for those who had studied or traveled across the seas, as I was saying. So this emphasized the aspects of people who had the money to do so were wearing these type of Western clothes. So enough to buy imported fashion sold at a handful of high-end boutiques. With comfort as a priority, the Malayans preferred loose clothing to combat the humid weather. So the baju began as the traditional attire of choice for both men and women. So men wore the baju, an assembled of loose-fitting shirts and pants with had sami pin or a wrap around the waist, while women were paired with their knee-length top with a matching skirt and the same material. So the women's version is intricately embroidered with motifs such as those of the Baju Showman Salmon modern attire. And this was in the 1950s. Now this also alludes to the aspects of, again, class structure and how that's very, very influential in society and cultures, and how all those things merge and how people correlate that to their culture says a lot about the development or underdevelopment of a nation too. So, according to Arthur C., to the author of of a book about Malayan fashion, it is crucial to pick the right color palette for the embroidery so that the colors don't clash. Yeah, and that's something that's very true, and I really like that that's emphasized, because it's unfortunate you can really ruin the way something looks. If the designer or the production house doesn't keep in mind the aspects of how colors flow with one another, and they don't get, too over the top, and they can't rein it in, or, something, and it takes away with how elegant something can look, and the displacement of how clothes carry themselves on a person. So in the eyes, the author of Karen Sim, the sari or sari worn by women in the Indian subcontinent was the most graceful of costumes, with its flowing lines and sculptured look. So the Ching Chan Sing, worn by Chinese women, on the other hand, was the most provocative, as it shows off a woman's figure to the highest degree possible. So, here we go into World War II. So, women's roles in society changed drastically. In 1948 on to 61, women were given the right to vote, and on to 61, the Women's Charter was passed to improve and protect the rights of females in Singapore. As more women found employment in the workforce therein, they had more power increase in fashion choices, having that spending power. So, They broadened their horizons to include work attire and the fashion aspects of Singapore. So, which in turn encouraged foreign brands to enter the local retail market. So, although cinema had been around Singapore since the 1900s, the turn of the century here, it was the advent of television in '63 that inspired local women to follow the latest trends in the medium. So most of which were influenced by, as I was saying earlier, Western movies and celebrities. So Fashion was the title of the first Malay weekly fashion magazine published in Malaya. So what was this all about? It focused on the Kiba designs featured in the magazine, and had more defined silhouette accenting, showcasing silhouettes accentuating with interesting necklines and elements borrowed from Western style dresses. So the fashion for Kiba dresses also borrowed from other ethnic costumes, such as the body-hugging designs of the Chinese frog bottoms, which is really cute. I'm looking at it right now. And if y'all are interested in seeing and learning more, feel free to look on in the source that I'm reading from. So Fashion Mirror was one of the pioneering publications that featured content on local fashion. First published in '58, it was one of the most popular magazines among women in Singapore, with articles specially written for Malayan readers. The magazine showcased clothing that was influential by Western culture and infused with a dash of local flavor. One such outfit as the Chinese mafu, a blouse and trouser pairing using modern fabrics enhanced with border designs to create a novel. And striking features at that, as seen in the May through June 1959 issue. So her world launch in '60 was one of Singapore's longest running women's magazines. It was touted as being packed with features on beauty, babies, things to make your home, exercises for your figure, exciting new recipes, and so on. So the inaugural issue informed readers that the Western dresses was the preferred attire among young ladies in the universities, as opposed to traditional costume, as it was less restrictive and more comfortable to wear. So by October of 1961, the edition featured a sarong kabai that had been given a twist with Spanish influence. So it had a wide, billowy bishop sleeves, cotton cuffs at the wrist. And it's quite cute. All right, so now this is a prime example of the aspects of how prevalent women are in society, and the aspects of how that changes and shapes everything. So this, again, it proves the narrative that it's not a narrative. That, you really need to peel behind and look at what they actually saying about the aspects of our culture and about the aspects of women and men and their placement in our society. So Singapore is proving that, how prevalent the power is of women being in the culture and the structures of society, and how that influences a lot of things. When we talk about the aspects of prosperity and moving up social ladders and so forth, and the aspects of things of the home and things of tradition, and how that merges itself together in an ever-changing world. So, made to measure. As Western culture made greater inroads in the local fashion scene, tailors would also replicate designs seen on television films and fashion magazines. So, the first public fashion showcase for men was held in '61 by the Singapore Merchant Tailors Association. The aim was to introduce the latest trends to bespoke suits to local consumers, to show off the high standards of tailoring in Singapore, and to improve dress sense among men. So the publication produced the interjections with the event featuring on the Western cover style evening jacket, and had been given the ethnic spin with the batik material. So, to cater to increasing interest in fashion, dress design, and dressmaking, classes were introduced by the Adult Education Board in '63. A total of 1,508 students were enrolled in the first and second batches of the 6-month course. Their works were showcased in a souvenir magazine published in '65. So budding fashionistas also turned to the dress pattern publications such as Lucky Fashion Magazine and She Z Fashion for inspiration. The inaugural issue of Lucky Fashion Magazine, published in '65, proved so popular that it sold out within a few weeks and went on to 3 reprints before the second issue was published later that year. Quite nice. All right. That's really cool. All right, so on to the 70s and to the 80s. So the local fashion industry received another boost in the 70s when manufacturing sectors took off in Singapore, opening Japanese departmental stores such as Yaohan, Easton, and Sogo. Also enlivened in the local shopping scene. Ready-to-wear outfits became more prevalent and were sold in department stores and shopping centers that sprang up all around the island. So by '77, a group of 33 local designers collaborated to produce a book showcasing their works, entitled Fashion Design, containing over 300 fashions designed by 33 designers. All right. On to the 80s. So, as homegrown labels grew with fashion imports, the efforts were made to put up apparel in '83, and the city's first industry-wide garment trade show promoting local labels and designers is hailed as a resounding success. So, by October of 1983, the Straits Times reported that Singapore made apparel. Okay, let me say that again. So their aspects of selling and the economy of apparel led to $20 million in increase in imports for the first 8 months of the year, ranking more than $1.1 billion in worth of sales of that year. So local designs were cultivating a global audience and putting Singapore right on that fashion map and fashion stage. Singapore has increased since the set on becoming the fashion capital of Asia. So by 2001, the Board of Tourism helped achieve that goal even more so. So the festival was held annually until 2009, when it took a 1-year hiatus and was rebranded as the Fashion Exchange, or the AFX, in 2010. So by 2015, Singapore Fashion Week became the core event of AFX, garnering the world attire's attention and participating by renowned international labels. By 2016, 13 homegrown designers shared the spotlight with other top Asian designers. So, the efforts seem to have paid off. By 2011, Singapore was ranked number 8 in the list of top 50 fashion capitals in the world, and by the U.S.-based Global Language Monitor. Although the city dropped to number 14 in 2015, it was the third highest ranked Asian city after Tokyo, which is number 10, and Hong Kong, number 12. Quite nice. So, I'm going to end on this. I'd like to know what you think. And again, this aspects of, being open and forward thinking, but also staying true to who you are, true to your tradition, not totally disregarding who you are, merging those things together and making it your own. Singapore and other countries that embody this are really good examples of how that works and how that's very prevalent to be successful and prosperous in a culture. Excuse me. So I'd like to know what you all think. Feel free to reach out to me. This reaches the end. Excuse me. This reaches the end. Tune in, turn up, take care. Bye-bye.